We're back.
We're back
For part 2.
We're back. We're recording this back to back because we got our high noons and we're ready to go.
Should I do the song again?
Yeah.
I can't do the rest of it. I was like,
That's beautiful. How's your high noon? Do you need another one or are you good?
I have maybe a quarter left.
Damn, I have 3/4, but I am talking a lot.
I also drink fast.
I'm also the one talking a lot.
I can chug.
Okay, it's not a competition.
Do you want
Do
to
you want to have a competition?
You have so much, though. How are we going to do that?
Okay, fine. We won't have a competition.
If we do, I'll win.
Fuck off. You don't know that for sure.
Oh, I know.
No, you don't. Anyways, moving on. I'm Morgan.
And I'm Miara.
And we are
Mysteriosities.
Okay, good. I love that we do it quickly when we need to get things going.
That's right.
We're jumping in real fast.
You're good at controlling it, though. I'm so bad.
Oh.
And I'm always the one that does. And we are. And then you look at me. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
Maybe we'll trade off our jobs from now on.
Yeah.
Maybe not. We'll find
idea.
out. Anyway, so we're here for part 2.
Part 2 of the Monster of Florence.
Yes.
I almost said Venice.
No.
Florence.
But you did it. I liked that you said it.
Yeah.
Because it showed that you were paying attention.
I was paying attention. I was very engaged.
You were very engaged with your theories and your thoughts and your whatnot. I liked it.
Yeah.
So we're here. We're doing part 2. Thank you for waiting patiently. However many days we made you wait, but we're here now.
Hopefully not too many.
Hopefully not too many. We're recording it back to back, so
yeah,
it's very fresh in my head.
Yeah.
Seems like the move. So
we're gonna talk about
the suspects, the investigations, and the theories.
Okay,
and
I'm ready.
Jumping because we got a lot to talk about.
This is what I want to know.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. So I wrote on my notes, I said, hold on to your hats, because it's about to become a very bumpy ride up in here, and I'll try to keep it as smooth as possible. Please do not applaud when I land. Do not be that person.
You almost sounded like Yoda. It was so nasally.
I just thought I was funny in that note. I don't know why.
That was funny.
So we're gonna jump. And we're going to do some recapping because, y'all, it's been a couple of days for you. So we want to make sure that you all know what's going on. So as we recall, Stefano Mele was imprisoned for the murders of his wife and her lover in 1968. And the murders were not connected to the rest of them for several years. So we're starting there. Remember that.
Right.
And then, of course, we're going to refresh. If you recall, a local voyeur named Enzo was arrested after the June 9th murders in 1981 because he spoke about the bodies before they were discovered.
But then it happened again. In October of that year, and he was released, since obviously he was in prison when that happened and he couldn't have done it. And then, soon after the 1982 attacks, an anonymous tip showed up telling the police to look once more at the 1968 murder. So, that's when we started connecting. It wasn't until 1982. Sketchy.
It's sketchy. And someone said, look into that murder. And when they looked into it, they realized that the same gun had been used.
Okay.
So that's when they started to be like, well, interesting. How was that gun used? And it still is being used.
They sold the gun.
But Stefano is in prison, so he couldn't have done it.
He sold the gun.
And then remember, his story was very, back and forth
Fernando
about...
or Forenzo or...
Salvatore.
The cousin.
Salvatore was the one who went with him, allegedly.
Yeah,
it was his gun.
Yeah,
but then he started blaming it was Francesco. Which is Salvatore's brother.
Right.
Is everyone with me so far?
I am.
Okay. So, we're back to Stefano. We're talking about him. We're talking about his inconsistent statements. He was, blaming himself. And he said that Salvatore was with him. And then he said it was Francesco. Instead of just believing that it might have been one of those people...
Purple?
I was really going to try to roll with the fact that I said that weird, but you noticed it.
That was so fun.
Instead, they started to think that it had been like a clan killing. It had been more than one person. They started to think that, Stefano, a whole circle had participated, and that perhaps one of them had enjoyed it so much that then they became the Monster of Florence afterward using that gun.
So it, awakened their inner...
Yeah, sort of like
serial
they
killer.
did the clan killing because they were all mad that he was, like, she was cheating on Stefano, but also a lot of the people in that circle were also fucking Barbara. So like I think Salvatore and Francesco were both her lovers as well.
Oh.
So they were thinking it was like all of them, and then one of them was like, damn, I was really into that, and then kept going and started escalating.
Which, the killings did start escalating.
Yeah, like that one was not, that was just shot, and then it was shot and stabbed, and excision, and vagina, and then the breast, and you know, all of that started escalating. So that stage of the investigation where they started thinking maybe it was a clan killing and then somebody went on to become the Monster of Florence, that was called the Piesta Sarda, or the Sardinian connection. Okay, so the first person that was arrested was Francesco Vinci, which we talked about.
He's the brother of Salvatore.
He's the brother of Salvatore, and he was a former lover of Barbara's.
Ow, ow.
And he was arrested and kept in custody for over a year, even through the 1983 murders. Because at that point, they thought it was like a group of them. And they were like, well, one of your relatives just did that to throw us off. That doesn't mean that you're not guilty.
Right.
You either could have done it or you knew, like, we're not letting you go because of that. And then they became suspicious of Antonio Vinci, which I believe might have been Francesco's cousin, but I didn't put it. But it's a Vinci. They're relatives, either way. And they arrested him on firearms charges just to get him arrested, and then they just
so they could hold him.
Yeah, and they were like grilling him, interrogating him, but he didn't break, and so they had literally nothing on him, so they released Antonio, but Francesco remained in custody after that too. And then the net was widened further, and the examining magistrate, whose name is Mario Rotella, who we'll hear a fair amount about, arrested.
Not to be confused with Mario Antonio Banderas.
Not Antonio Banderas.
Okay.
And Stefano's brother and brother-in-law were arrested. So Giovanni Mele...
It's just a family affair, isn't it?
It's the Sardinian connection. So Giovanni Mele and Perio Muccinari were arrested. And Giovanni was also boinking Barbara. I wrote that. I said Giovanni was also boinking Barbara.
I love it.
Like I said, Queen Bee. Like, she was living her life.
She was.
I'm not judging. I mean, she was married, so I guess I'm judging that part a little bit, but not the rest. Do you think? Do you think, girl?
Yeah.
I support you. But then the 1984 murders happened, and Giovanni and Piero and Francesco were all released. I don't know why then they were like, okay, now you can go, when before they were like, no, it was just one of your family members. Maybe because most of them were in jail with them. So they released them in 1984. And after that, a special strike team was formed, and it combined the two Italian police forces. So the Italian police force, there's like two of them. There's like the civilian police and the military police.
Okay.
And so they combined forces and made like a strike team of the two of them. And they also offered a $290,000 reward for information, which was the highest bounty in Italian history.
Wow.
That's some money, honey.
And this is after just the one killing?
No. This was in 1984. After they released all the brothers.
Okay.
And the cousins and all the relatives.
Gotcha.
And then they looked into Francesco's brother Salvatore again. Remember, Salvatore is the one that, if you listen to Stefano's story, that he met up with. It was his gun. He was the one that was like, you shouldn't be letting her do this. I have a gun. And then they like followed her and her mans.
Yeah.
In the 68 murder. That's Salvatore.
Okay.
And she was also a lover of Barbara's.
I just keep thinking Vampire Diaries.
It's not Vampire Diaries.
I know, but I keep thinking it's Stefan Salvatore, and he went crazy for a while because he left his humanity, and he went on a freaking binge and mutilated all kinds of bodies.
There's no vampires in the story.
Okay, fine.
So Salvatore's wife had actually died because she'd been found asphyxiated by gas in their home, and it had been ruled a suicide, but there were like whispers that it had been murder and that he had murdered her because somebody...
It made it look like suicide.
Yeah. Because somebody had mysteriously rescued their son from the home but left her to die. So...
Now do it.
In 1985, after the last monster murder, Salvatore was arrested and charged with his wife's murder because they didn't have anything to hold him on for the monster murders.
Okay.
But they wanted him in custody. So their plan was to convict him for his wife's murder and then leverage it against him to get him to say who the monster was. They think, because again, they think it's like kind of like in that family. So they're like, maybe if we tell him like we're charging you on this and we'll charge you on the rest,
that he talked,
like tell us what you know, that they would get something from it.
Right.
They did not. What?
I'm just trying to keep track of all these names.
I know there's a lot.
I'm like
of
sitting
names.
here trying to like, I need a web.
I know there's a lot of names.
Like, you know that picture, that meme of Charlie Day, and he's got all the...
No, yeah, literally.
That's what I'm picturing.
I will let you visualize that. But Salvatore's trial was basically a disaster. The witnesses were vague as fuck. The evidence wasn't great. And his son refused to testify against him. So he was acquitted for his wife's murder. So obviously then they couldn't get anything with a monster on him either. Because they were like, you're free to go.
Right.
You win. Your trial.
So, who's the one that... I'm confused.
Oh, no.
Who's the one where... Who's married to Barbara?
Stefano.
So it's not Stefano Salvatore? Who's this guy?
You think his name is Stefano Salvatore? What the fuck kind of name is that?
Stefan Salvatore. That's why I'm confused.
His name is Stefano Melli.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that was Barbara's husband.
Yes.
And Salvatore is a
Salvatore
different guy.
Vinci
Oh, okay.
is...
He's the friend
He is the friend
that helped.
that helped, supposedly.
The brother of Francesco.
He's the brother of Francesco.
Okay, we got the web.
I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of names at this part. It gets a little clearer once they kind of drop the Sardinian connection and move forward, but there are a lot of names for that. But
yeah,
you got it?
I got it now.
Okay.
I got it.
And Salvatore's wife is the one who got asphyxiated.
Yes. And they think that he set her up to look like a suicide, but actually he did it because he took the kid out.
Right, but then the trial happened and he was acquitted because it was a mess.
Got it.
So then they couldn't get him for the monster stuff either because they couldn't leverage it the way they hoped they'd be able to when he got convicted for his wife's murder, but he did not.
So they didn't charge him for the
monster murders? No. Okay. They just charged him for his wife's murder, and then they were planning on trying to use that against him somehow to identify who the monster was. Okay. To maybe try to be like, we'll get you for these two if you don't help us.
Right.
Because we already got you on this, so we're going to get you on more.
Yeah.
But they failed, and he walked free and vanished, and he slipped through the hands of police forever. He said, peace out, bye. And that is when the chief prosecutor, Pier Luigi Vinga, was like, you know what, I think we should maybe stop with this whole, why are you laughing?
Because you said Luigi.
Luigi, whatever. There's so many names I get really stressed out by the pronunciation, okay?
I just thought that was funny. Luigi.
Cancel this whole episode because I can't pronounce anything and I'm getting embarrassed.
Who do you want to be? I want to be Luigi. We play Mario Kart. I want to be Luigi.
I've never played Mario Kart with you ever again.
If we do, I'm going to make you be Luigi.
I'm never going to. You can't make me.
Oh, shit.
Anywho.
There's our crossover topic, Alex. With So We Gaming. We'll talk about Mario and Luigi.
I will quit this podcast before I let you slander my name anymore than this.
Okay, continue.
Anyways,
we're talking about Luigi.
That's when Pier Luigi Vinga said, I think we should stop going at this family and like the Sardinian suspects, the Sardinian connection, because the reason that they were pushing it so hard is what I was telling you earlier, which was the fact that the gun had been used in that first murder.
Right.
They thought that he had to have come from that first murder
had the marks on it.
because it was the same gun.
Yeah.
So that's why they were pushing that. They were like, it has to be someone from this group because they had the gun for that murder. They have to have taken it and continued. But he wanted to look into the possibility of the gun being picked up by an unknown party after its use, which is kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
Maybe
like
they sold it,
or
maybe, like Stefano said the first time that he talked about it, he said they threw it over a bridge. Like maybe somebody found it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't...
And if this guy who's like a voyeur and he's out and about like that...
Yeah.
He very well could have found it.
You could easily, just happen upon it if you're creeping in that area with your suction cup microphones and your night vision cameras.
Right.
you could definitely find, be like, oh, hoo, this gun is mine now. And you could argue that lawyer could have seen the murder, and like you were saying, with the awakened thing, maybe he just liked watching it, and then maybe he literally watched them throw the gun. He's
like,
and took
I could
it.
do this better.
Yeah, and they're like, well, I'm going to take this, and I want to try now.
Could be.
So ending the Sardinian connection, though, caused a huge rift between the two sects of the police. Like I told you, there's the military police and the civilian police, and the military police supported Rotella, which is the guy I was talking about earlier. The examining magistrate, which I think is sort of like the prosecutor, would you say, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, because Luigi is the prosecutor. I don't know. There's a lot of law terms, but the point is that Rotella was supported by the military police, and the citizen police was supporting Vigna on saying we should go elsewhere, outside of this family. And basically the whole thing turned into a personality contest, and Vigna won, which means that they decided, okay, Sardinian connection, nah, we're going to try to branch out. And so the military police withdrew all support from the little squad that they had made, and they renounced all involvement in the case. And they said, if you're not doing the Sardinian connection, we're out. We think that's it.
Okay.
So we're not
So they're like, I don't want to be associated with something that I don't believe in.
Yeah, they're like, we don't think that that's the right move,
Makes
so
sense.
we're dipping out. So then Rotella was forced to clear all the Sardinian suspects, and he withdrew from the case in 1989. So he said bye as well. And so then Ruggiero Perini, he became lead on the squad.
Okay.
And fun fact, he was later fictionalized as the Chief Inspector Rinaldo Pazza in Thomas Harris's Hannibal.
Oh, okay.
So he was who that was based off of, Hannibal, which I never saw, so I don't know who that is. But I mean, I know about it, but I never saw it, so I don't know about his fictionalized version of himself. But Ruggiero became an instant celeb when he adjusted his Ray-Bans on camera, and he said on a popular news program, "People call you a monster, a maniac, a beast, but I believe I have come to know you and understand you better. We are here to help you." And he was trying to get him to give himself up.
Okay.
And he basically wiped the slate clean and started investigating. Just not even, we're not looking at what they did, we're looking at what we did. And we're going to move forward from that. And basically, he came to find that all the crime scenes were, all the investigations of all the crime scenes were pretty incompetent. People were coming and going. They were picking up gun shells. They were taking pictures. They were throwing their cigarettes on the ground. Most of the forensic evidence, like the knee print, a partial fingerprint that they'd happened to find, no one really analyzed, and now they'd gone bad or they spoiled. They weren't as easy to analyze. So it was a bit of a mess. But he was really into the idea of finding a suspect based on the help of computer programs.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was punching in various criteria for convictions on sex crimes, prison sentences, stuff like that, to see who he could come up with.
Doing his criminal mind shit.
Yeah, kind of going beep bop boop bop boop in the computer and seeing if someone viable comes up and sort of looks like he fits the bill.
Right.
And then he found a man, and his name is Pietro Passini. And this guy, fuck this guy a lot.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if you're ready
I don't know
this.
if I'm ready either.
So he had been convicted of domestic abuse on his wife, rape, and sexually assaulting his daughters.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
He also fed his family dog food sometimes to save money.
While he ate steak.
A little fun fact there. And then he also was convicted on the murder of a traveling salesman in 1951. He bashed his head in when he caught him with his girlfriend, and then he raped his girlfriend next to the corpse.
Jeez.
So
That is...
he served 13 years in prison, and basically, he sounds like a horrible fucking person.
Yeah.
But they found similarities between that murder and the monster killings. And also, apparently, Pietro had said when he was being interrogated that he had gone crazy when he had seen his girlfriend uncover her left breast for her seducer.
Oh,
So
shit.
that's kind of like a little bit of a little trigger moment.
Yeah.
He's talking about that, and the monsters are cutting breasts off. That's
Yeah. It's
a little bit of a... Could just be a coincidence, but definitely a little bit weird. But then there was also a painting in Petro's house that was called the Primavera. Are you an artist person? Do you know what that is?
Not
Anyways,
at all. That's not me.
apparently it depicts a pagan nymph
with flowers spilling out of her mouth. And this reminded Inspector Ruggiero of the gold chain that was lying in the victim's mouth, like one of the first victims, which I think is a little bit flimsy.
Yeah.
Flowers in a chain, that's not even that similar. That's
that seems like you're trying to make things fit that don't.
Yeah, but he liked that link so much that when he ended up writing a book about the Monster of Florence, that art painting was on the cover. Like, he really liked that link, but I think that's kind of flimsy. I don't know, that doesn't really line up to me.
Right.
It'd be one thing if the painting had someone with a chain. If it was a chain in her mouth and then a chain. Or if the killer had, like, stuffed flowers in her mouth, that'd be fucking weird. And that would also be a link, but I don't really think that those two things have anything to do with each other, to me.
No.
Apart from things being in mouths.
Yeah.
Anyways, he organized a 12-day search of Petro's property, and basically the only physical evidence that they found at the end of the search was an unfired bullet, the same brand as the monsters that was found in the garden at the end of the search. And to that I say suspicious.
Yeah.
I wrote, this is a little suspect to me, to be honest, like a planted kind of moment. Because apparently he also announced it like with a great fanfare. He was like, oh my god, I found something. Which just seems a little bit like you.
He seems like extra. Like he likes the show of things. Like when you said the thing with the sunglasses and he said the thing.
Oh my god, like CSI Miami?
Yeah, Horatio. That's what it reminds me of.
I wish I had some sunglasses right now. I'd be like, I'd say that this murder was done over easy.
Yeah. Remember the episode of Supernatural where they're making fun of all different types of TV? That's what it reminds me of.
Anyways, so yeah, I said anyways again. I'm just going to stop worrying about it.
Your mom's giving you a complex.
I know, truly. So, yeah, it seemed a little suspicious to me that the only thing that they found was that, and it was at the very end. Like, he could have had it in his pocket, and he's like, God, we haven't found shit. And then he's like, whooped it out of his pocket, and put it, and then it landed on the ground. And he was like, oh my God, I found something.
Yeah.
Because why would a random unfired bullet be in the garden?
Yeah.
Why would you wouldn't be loading the gun in the garden? If it's unfired, it wasn't like you're practicing your shots out in the garden. Like, it doesn't really make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
For it to be in the garden. And then apparently they also found like a scrap of a rag in the garage, and then later on somebody anonymously sent in a .22 Beretta wrapped in a torn rag, saying they found it under a tree where he often went, and then the rags were compared and matched. But I also think that's suspicious.
Yeah, it seems weird.
When someone is anonymously sending you something and being like, oh, look at this, and then it happens to match, I'm like,
That
seems a little suspicious to me.
Right. It's a little convenient.
Right. But then he was arrested on January 16th, 1993. And his trial was like, you know how everyone and their mom is watching the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial?
Yeah.
And it's all over TikTok and it's absolutely everywhere all the time?
Yeah.
It was like that. It was everywhere. It was broadcasted every single night. It was like...
But in Italy.
Yeah. I don't know if it was worldwide, but in Italy it was on every single night. Like, people were so into the drama. And Spessy, you know our boy Spessy, Antonio Banderas, the reporter.
Yeah.
He would lay out articles being like, I don't think it's this guy. I don't think that he did it.
And I trust Antonio.
Yeah. He knows what he's talking about.
He does. He's Zorro.
He said that he thought the Sardinian investigation had been closed too early and that people were too caught up in the drama.
Yep.
And, like, not focusing on the actual evidence.
I agree, Mr. Banderas.
They were talking about how Petro's daughters were up crying on the stand. Remember, he assaulted his daughters. And that Petro himself was, like, rocking and sobbing, being like, I am a sweet little lamb. I am here like Christ on the cross. Like, talking about how he didn't do it. But then he'd also, like, burst into...
Did he actually say that?
Yeah.
He did?
He said, I am like Christ on the cross.
Oh, he didn't say sweet little
No,
lamb.
the sweet little lamb thing is in quotes as well.
What a weirdo. I thought you were just adding that because it was funny.
No, it's on there. It is.
And I quote.
Quote, unquote. But the prosecutors presented no murder weapons, no reliable eyewitnesses. If you remember, all they have on him is that bullet, apparently the rag, and then the fact that he's a shitty fucking person, basically.
Right.
Like, they don't have anything that really links him in any other way. So it's not a lot. You know what I mean? Even his wife and his daughters, who hated him, said he couldn't have been the monster because he was home drunk most of the time, yelling at them and abusing them. Basically, he was like, no,
Like, he was
He was
never
too
gone.
busy being a dick to us.
Yeah,
to
he
do
was
that to anybody
way too
else.
preoccupied being horrible to us to be
Right.
out murdering people like that.
Right.
But he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, and his initial trial in 1994 is when that ended. But, again, like, think about the evidence they had on that. And he was convicted, for life.
Yeah.
They did not have shit, really.
Uh-uh.
Like, they did not have shit. But they have mandatory appeals in Italy. So when that happened, the prosecutor who was handling the case refused to do it. Like, he refused to prosecute against Pietro because he was like, there's no evidence. Like, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous that he was convicted for this. I'm
Right.
not even going to try this case against him. I'm not going to do it. And became like his advocate. And the judge agreed and cited lack of evidence and poor police work, and he was acquitted and released in 1996. So he was in jail for 2 years for that, and then he was acquitted. And reasons that have been given to absolve him were the fact that the serial killer was considered to be impotent, but Pietro was considered, like, quote, oversexed because, like, he had a wife, he had lots of lovers, he went to prostitutes, like, he assaulted his daughters. Like, he is not impotent. Like, he's far from it, actually.
Right.
And then also the fact that in every single one of the monster's murders, wallets and, like, purses were, like, strewn out, but never stolen. But he was a known thief. Like, he would have taken their money, is what people were saying.
That makes sense.
And then also at the time of the 1985 attack with the Sprinter, he was 60 years old.
Yeah, there's no way.
And they were like, there's no way he would have caught up to this 25-year-old amateur sprinter. He was an athlete. Like, this 60-year-old man who was often drunk is not going to catch up to him.
Right.
He also did not match the estimated height that they basically had verified through the Volkswagen bus murder and then the knee marks.
Yeah.
And then it also is said that he even had an alibi for the 1985 crime.
Okay.
So based on all of that, actually, and just to add to that, remember how I said they couldn't decide if the last crime had taken place, like, before or after midnight, if it was, like, the 7th or the 8th?
Right.
Apparently the prosecutors were allegedly trying to change the official date to Sunday instead of Saturday just to convict him so that his alibi wouldn't work.
Oh.
So based on all of that, they, acquitted him, and they said, okay, you're a shitty person, but you're not it.
Right.
So he was released. And then Ruggero Perugini.
I love pierogies.
So then, the guy, Horatio Kane from CSI Miami, he was donezo. And so then Michelle Guattari took over after him. And in Pieto's appeal, before he was released, he was trying to introduce new witnesses, but then he was denied. So because of these new witnesses, we're now going to lead in to the final people arrested for the Monster of Florence murders.
Okay.
And based on this information that they were trying to bring up in the appeal, but they weren't allowed to, they thought that Pietro led a group with a man named Mario Vanni and Giancarlo Lotti, and that they were all responsible.
Okay.
But again, they weren't allowed to present that at the appeal. So then they arrested Mario and Giancarlo for the murder. Now they're thinking this is a group, these three guys. The shitty guy who was released, and then these two bros that he was friends with.
Okay.
And they began to, plan out a trial for those two guys, but then they were also going to try Pietro again, because I don't think there's double jeopardy in Italy. So he was, released, but they were going to go after him again with this new theory that it was a group and not just him.
Okay.
But he died in 1998 before his new trial could begin. He was found lying face down on the floor of his home, his trousers down and his shirt up around his neck. And although his face was blue and disfigured, initially they said he died of cardiac arrest. But then later they did a post-mortem examination and found that there were lots of drugs in his system that caused his death. So some people think that they were trying to silence him so that he couldn't give any more information.
Why were his pants down? Was he going to the bathroom?
I don't know, Miara.
Because when you
detail.
Well, you said his face was blue and stuff, so I'm thinking how people who are super kinky do the asphyxiation shit, and then sometimes they hang themselves.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, he
Maybe
might
he was
have
jacking
been doing
it or something.
He could have been. I don't know his preferences other than being a shitty person.
Well, I mean, he's obviously a super sexual dude, so.
Yeah, that's very clear.
I wouldn't put it past him.
No, not at all. But the point is, they thought he was silenced before his trial started because they were worried that he was going to spill. To which I say, but then why wouldn't you have been worried about his first trial or his appeal? Why are you worried now?
Yeah, that's weird.
So I think that's kind of weird. But the two accomplices were later tried again. That's Mario Vanni and Giancarlo Lodi. And Lodi was going to be one of the witnesses, like I said, in that trial, in the appeal, where he wasn't allowed to speak. And he was going to claim that he had seen Mario and Pietro commit the 1985 murder. He was going to testify that it was Pietro who shot the victims and Vanni that mutilated them. And he said that he only was the lookout, because you always only say you're the lookout, you know. You're
right.
Like, oh no, I was just the lookout.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. But then later he'd said, okay, I lied. I also shot them. So they were both convicted and condemned to life in prison, though their sentences are widely criticized because, like, first of all, that's just the 1985 murder that they're talking about, that they admitted to doing.
Right.
They're not even talking about any of the other ones. There's no evidence for any of that either. It's just them saying, it's just Lodi basically saying, yeah, he did this, and I did this. And then they were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Though I did read in one article that Vanni was sentenced to life in prison and Lodi was sentenced to 26 years. So take that with a grain of salt. But either way, they were sentenced and condemned to life in prison, even though there doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence. And then they have both since died in prison because they're kind of older. Because if you remember, Peter was 60 at the 85 attack, and now it's like late 90s.
Right.
So they later died. So they're dead now.
Okay.
And guess what? Remember when I said that the bullet that was found in the garden and the rag were both suspect?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were later found to be manufactured clues.
Yeah.
So they were suspect.
By Horatio.
And I literally wrote right here, I guessed that red herring fucking 5 paragraphs ago. Because I did. I was very proud of myself when I read that.
That's right. We should be freaking...
I was like, thank you. I know.
Investigators.
But then, do you want to know who else thought that the bullet was planted?
Antonio Banderas.
Yes,
Spessy
thought that the bullet was planted. And I said, you know you're on the right side when you're on Spessy's side.
There you go.
That's a fact. And then later it was added that one of Pietro's shitty ass, so another one of his friends was involved, whose name is Giampero Vigilanti, and his house was searched, and they found newspaper cuttings about the killings and bullets of the same make used in the murders. And currently, like to this day, like right now, as we speak, family members of those who were killed by the Monster of Florence want there to be an investigation on this man, even though he's like 90 years old. But I mean, whatever. If he's 90 years old and he killed people, they should still investigate it. But
right.
Yeah, basically, like to this day, like the families are being like, you need to investigate this guy.
Yeah.
If you found newspaper cuttings about the killings, you found bullets, like why didn't you investigate this guy? Like we want you to do it now. But wait, there's more.
Oh shit.
In 2001. So kind of just jump into some random stuff now. So that's all the legal stuff that happened. And now we're kind of going into the random shit that happened. Sort of. Well, I guess it's all kind of intermixed. I don't know. I'm kind of chaotic sometimes.
Oh,
basically, there was a group. And it was an investigative group for serial crimes that was announced in like 2001. And they said that they thought the crimes were committed by a satanic cult.
Of course.
So it's going to be a cult theory. They said that they thought that the group had 10 to 12 wealthy, sophisticated Italians and that they orchestrated the ritualized murders. They said that they were tipped off about this cult by anonymous letters. So it was an anonymous letter. And they even named some of the people that they said were in the cult, which included like a psychologist and a Swiss artist and like a doctor.
What would a satanic cult have against people banging in their cars?
No, here's the thing though. They said that they just, like, the theory was that they hired Pietro and Mario and Giancarlo, the last 3 people, that they hired them to commit the murders and collect the genitalia, and then they needed it for rituals.
What the fuck?
So that's what that theory was, basically.
That just doesn't make sense.
And in one of Lottie's testimonies, like in that trial, he said that a doctor hired Pietro to commit the murders. Like, he said that too.
So that's what they were using as well.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
To be like, yeah, that's what that happened.
Because the stabbings and stuff, like the one... No. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's very true, because if you were hired to do something very specific, you would, I mean, I hate to be, like, blunt, but, like, you would probably just shoot them in the head and then collect what you needed to collect. You wouldn't slash the body 100 times.
Right. That's a crime of, like, so much hate towards women. Like, it's... No.
Yeah, and you just wouldn't...
That doesn't hold up.
If you were being paid for body parts... You wouldn't want to risk fucking them up by slashing a body 100 times.
Right.
You wouldn't want to fuck it up. You'd be like, oh.
Well, and like and doing that much, if you're doing this for a job, why take all that time to stab somebody or slash somebody when all you need is the parts? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying you'd shoot them in the head,
because
clean and easy, and also you probably...
It's not hard, or it's not easy to stab somebody. I mean, that takes...
Literally.
Yeah.
But that was the theory. And this guy who was the leader of this group also said that near a villa where Pietro was employed, he found like stones that were shaped in a pyramid, and he thought that meant that there was cult activity. But basically there were massive critics that like laughed and said that idea was super stupid, because a lot of people in that area use stones as doorstops.
Yeah.
They're like, these stones don't prove shit, bro. They're just probably doorstops.
I would laugh at them too.
So they later searched that villa too, and they did not find anything.
That's right, because it's not true. Because people are stupid.
Yeah, and then he went further into this idea, and they exhumed the body of a gastroenterologist named Francesco Narducci, whose body was found floating in a lake 20 years earlier, and they had deemed it as suicide, but they recently, in this time, thought that maybe he was murdered by the satanic cult. So they exhumed his body for some fucking unknown reason, because they were trying to prove that theory, and nothing happened. Because it's a stupid ass theory.
Yeah.
But you want to know who else thought it was a stupid ass theory?
Antonio Banderas.
And he was arrested.
What?
Antonio was arrested.
Why?
If you're gonna call him Antonio, I really gotta keep calling him by his real name so people don't get confused. Spesty.
Sorry.
It's funny when you do it, but if I do it too, then all of a sudden we think we're talking about Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
But no, Spessi got arrested.
It's funny when I do it.
Because they said, quote unquote, he said he materially damaged the investigation by casting doubt on the accusations through use of media of television. So basically because he was writing articles being like, y'all, be stupid.
Right. I would be the same way, Antonio.
And also because he evidenced a peculiar...
You're great at this today. Peculiarly?
Evidenced a suspicious interest in the investigation.
Okay.
So basically because he'd been in, like, reporting on it for so long that was apparently suspicious and peculiar.
Okay. What if it was him?
It wasn't fucking Spezzi. He would never do that. And he was served with an aviso de garanzia, which is one step short of a formal indictment, and it listed 17 crimes for which he was being investigated. They searched his home for like 7 hours. Everything he had relating to the case was taken. At this point, he was writing that book that I read.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of stuff. But he was later released, and his arrest was declared illegal. And then...
That's right.
Yeah, and then the guy who was heading up that investigation, the group that was called Gruppo Investigativo Delitti Serial, which was the investigative group for serial crimes, they had to, like, disband.
Yeah.
And they were indicted on abuse of office for doing that, basically. And so after that group was dissolved, there's no active investigation remaining on the Monster of Florence. But did you think we were done? We're not. We're not done, because now we're going to talk about the Zodiac Killer. I told you we were going to talk about the Zodiac Killer, and now we are.
I'm curious why.
Okay, here's why. Are you ready? So
I feel like Okay, go ahead.
No, what? Tell me.
Well, I did research for another killer that hadn't been found.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring the Zodiac Killer into that, too. And I'm like, y'all giving him far too much credit.
Nobody can fucking
It's contagious.
It's contagious. Okay, no, but in 2017, Francesco Amicone, who was a freelance journalist, conducted his own investigation,
and it led him to find a connection between the Monster of Florence and the Zodiac Killer cases. Basically, he was saying it was the same person.
Okay.
He's saying that the suspect in question was a former superintendent of the Florence American Cemetery in Italy, named Giuseppe Belviqua, who was born on December 20th, 1935 in New Jersey.
Okay.
Okay. So they said that Giuseppe had he said that Giuseppe had a 20-year career in the Army before he left and moved to Florence in 1974. And apparently, according to this journalist, he wrote a partial admission where he confessed to this journalist for being responsible for the murders attributed to both the Zodiac killings and the Monster of Florence. But this is an unregistered conversation that apparently occurred on September 11th, 2017. But Giuseppe denied it and threatened to sue him, basically being like, what the fuck? I did not do this. But that did not stop Francesco, the journalist, from continuing to accuse him. He basically claimed, his theory was that Giuseppe was an undercover CID agent, which is the Army Criminal Defense. The Army Criminal Investigation Division, and that he had been assigned to the investigation of a soldier in San Francisco at the time of the Zodiac's homicides in 70 and 69. I don't know why I said those out of order. 69 and 70. He also said that then he moved to Italy, and as an Army criminal investigator, he would have had access to the case files about the double murder in Florence in 1968, where the bullets and shells were improperly stored and then later found to be the same as the ones that were later. And he said that he thought that Giuseppe replaced the pieces of evidence with spent cartridges shot by the gun that he would use for the monster's homicide, so that he'd link them together. So he basically changed them out for the Monster of Florence shells so that they would be all the same gun. So then when people were like, oh, this is connected, if they would ever be suspicious of him, he'd be like, yeah, I wasn't even in Italy in 68. So that is Francesco's little theory. But apparently the Italian authorities actually collected Giuseppe's DNA in late 2020, and in 2021 they closed the investigation on him. And the prosecutor said, this journalistic inquiry is characterized by suggestions, assumptions, asserted intuitions, and it does not contain any factual element likely linked to the rise of a dignity of a clue. So basically, this is a theory with actually nothing behind it except for a theory.
Right.
And then the reporter was investigated for defamation because Giuseppe sued him. So.
Yeah.
But I do think it's kind of an interesting little theory to say that he was in San Francisco when that happened, and then he was in Italy, and that he could have changed the cartridges because they weren't stored properly. I don't know. It's kind of
it's just so
it's pretty
out
crazy.
there.
I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's kind of fun. Anyway, so then I'm really, really, really quickly gonna say the profile. Because we love a profile.
I love a profile. I've been waiting for that.
Yeah, so Spezzi, Spezzi is the one that uncovered that there was a profile made by the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit at Quantico, which had been commissioned in secret and then suppressed because it hadn't described Pietro Piccini,
Yeah.
the shitty guy.
Yeah.
I feel like I say his name differently every time I say it.
Yeah, you do. But it's
as
fine.
long as we know who I'm talking about.
I'm still keeping track. So.
Basically, they said they had it made, but then since it didn't fit him, they just suppressed it and never released it. And it concluded that the monster was a male about 45 years old coming from an area of the killings, that he was likely a manual laborer with average intelligence, that is a bachelor that lives alone, or with an elderly person, that he lives near the place of the first killings and has no relations with women and likely has a sexual dysfunction. It said that he chose the place for the crimes, not the victims, and that he would only kill in familiar locations.
Okay.
So that's the profile.
Okay. Which
which hits, because I feel like you'd have to be. I feel like impotent is the vibe with the way that he everything that he does.
Yeah, because it sounds like he's taking the blame on the woman why he can't get it up.
And I know that on Criminal Minds that people say that stabbing is I forget the word they use, but it's penetrating, so it's an act of because you can't
get it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's pretty valid, but that also, the report is saying the same thing that we kind of disagree with, that he's choosing the places, not the victims, but I still think it's weird that so many of the women had experiences beforehand where they were there's a guy being suspect.
Right.
But like I said, that's never brought up again.
Hmm.
And I just think that's kind of weird. Okay, we're rolling towards the end, though. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk really briefly about basically random people's theories on what could have happened, so that then you can tell me what you think happened. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to start with Mario Spezzi.
Antonio.
Our boy. So, and I really wrote our boy right there, too. So basically, he quit his job after 15 years of following this case and being exhausted by it. And then, I mean, he ended up getting arrested. So, like,
Right.
I would be sick of that shit, too.
Like that.
And he basically was kept on with the paper he worked for on a freelance contract. And he was able to have time to fulfill a lifelong dream of writing mystery novels, but also embarking on his own counter-investigation, where he was like, let me see what I can do here.
Yeah.
And then, that was when he received help from a high-ranking official in the military police. If you remember, they dipped when the Sardinian connection was thrown out the window.
Yeah.
They were like, I don't think that's right. We're dipping. But apparently, after they withdrew, they also continued their own secret investigation on the case as well. And they had identified a possible suspect of the monster, who had been arrested on previous crimes and released. And they had, for years, the police, when they were looking at like where all the crimes took place and everything that happened, they could never find a pattern. But when Spezzi started to map the life and movements of the military police's suspects, he found overlaps in like locations.
Oh.
Yeah, and he said the suspect was the son of one of the original Sardinians in the investigation.
Okay.
And that he was still alive and living in Florence. So now we're going to talk about this guy really briefly. And I don't know why I didn't write his name down. I think for a while he wouldn't say his name, like publicly. No, it's not him. It's not fucking Spezzi. He would never do that.
No, I'm saying.
Oh, like he doesn't want to say it out loud because it probably is him and he doesn't want to get killed. But no, this guy seems like a real fucking gem, and I'm lying because he sounds like a fucking asshole. And so he went to interview this guy. He was like, obviously not being like, hello, I think you're the killer, please tell me more. But because his father was in the original investigation, he was able to kind of be like, you know, kind of get in on that.
Right.
And so apparently he asked that man, Spezzi was kind of like, you could have stolen that gun, couldn't you? If it's your father's gun, you could have stolen that gun and kept like killing.
Right.
Know? He was like, what proof do you have that you didn't steal his gun? And this guy said, if I had, I would have fired it into my father's forehead. Which is a little dark. And then Spezzi did ask him, like, if he was the monster of Florence. And apparently the man never stopped smiling. And do you want to know what he said?
Oh, God.
My iPad just died, but I know what he said, so it's okay. He said, no, I like my pussy whole. Which, like, gross.
What a statement.
That's so gross.
But, like, what if he couldn't get it in, though? I mean, he likes it that way, but it doesn't mean he can get it in.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, it doesn't work if you can't get it up.
I'm saying. Hold on. Okay, yeah. So he said, that's what he said. And I said, which gross. But apparently he had prison sentences that lined up from when the murders stopped. So, like,
man, it's him.
Between 74
This is the best one.
And 81, he was in prison, and that's when there was a gap in the murders. So.
And I feel like, okay, can I just go on a tangent here? So, like, he hates his dad, obviously, because he said he would put a bullet through his dad's head. Well, what if, like, his type of killing that he was doing was to prove his masculinity to his dad? You know what I mean?
It could be.
Because he feels less of a man because he's impotent, and his dad's a dick, and he feels like he's never going to live up to be, you know, good enough for his dad. So he has all of that rage. I solved it. It's him.
You just, because it's Spezzi's theory.
Well, he's also very smart.
Yeah, that's fair. And he also apparently had a marriage annulled, with the official reason being inability to procreate.
Yep, there it is.
So that could be interpreted as you
can't get it up.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So that's one theory.
Okay.
And then another theory is, so you remember Mario Vanni, which is one of the men who was the last one arrested and he died in jail. Well, this guy named Nino Falasto, he defended him. And he later talked about his theory, which is that the killings started in 68, but that Sardinians and Mele actually had nothing to do with it. He thinks that the killer was a part of the police, or was pretending to be a part of the police. he cited that on a couple of occasions, the registrations of the car were found on the floor. Like someone had asked them to take it out, you know what I mean? As if the killer, had approached and been like, I'm a cop. I need to see your registration.
Yeah.
He also apparently said there was an occasion where an anonymous witness confided to him that they saw a suspicious-looking police car driving slowly by the area and that it seemed to be casing the area. And that was suspicious because apparently there was only one driver in the car, and in Italy, police officers don't patrol alone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And
which is smart.
I mean, yeah, that is smart. And then he backs his theory up by pointing out how the killer could have manipulated the police work and that he would always know what they were doing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Still like the other one better.
I know. I mean, that one doesn't have a lot. It just basically is like, suspicious police car and, registration, whatever. And then there's another theory. And this theory was that Petro was the killer and he was working with Vonnie and Lottie and that they acted on, like I said, commissions and they were like being paid for the body parts. So that's basically the one we kind of talked about earlier, where the gist is like there's a mysterious social elite and the body parts were being used in satanic rituals or orgies or black masses or devil offerings in some underground environment that I've never uncovered.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's not as good. And then there is another theory. And this theory is that, and this is a guy named Antonio Sagini who wrote a book about it.
Okay.
And he said that he thinks that it's Giancarlo Lottie, which again is one of the people who went to prison and died in prison. But he thinks that it was just him by himself. He thinks that he was a peeping Tom who was spying on Barbara and her lover in the car in the 68 murder, and then witnessed the murder. Then he saw that the gun was left behind, but he picked it up and took it. And then, like we were saying earlier, like kind of the awakening, he thinks that he became inspired to like reproduce similar crimes. Because he was a social outcast who barely had any friends and never had a relationship, and that the theory is that he killed to feel important and to read about his acts in the paper. He had a lot of the traits in the profile, basically.
Okay.
He was the right age and height, too. Like, he matched that profile a lot. And he said he thought that he confessed and he accused Vonnie and Petro to lighten his own sentence and to explain why there was some evidence against him, even if he was saying, he only stood guard or he only shot one time. But it would be, like, a believable reason, like if they saw his car in the area, there was a reason he admitted to being there, but he kind of could lessen his involvement that way.
Right.
But this guy thinks that he's the sole monster of Florence by himself.
He seems too much like a pussy.
That's okay. That could be. I don't know. That I kind of feel like that's a little bit valid. And then
I still like the other one.
There's a guy named Paolo Cocci, and he also wrote a book about the Monster of Florence, and there was another movie about it. And this guy just says that he thinks that the real Monster of Florence has never even been suspected or investigated and never been caught and was never anywhere near it.
Right. Well, that's how I felt, too, this whole time.
Which kind of feels valid, because I feel like, I don't know, like I usually trust profiles. I just kind of feel like they're calling him like a manual laborer, like of average intelligence, blah, 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 blah. But, like, I feel like he could just be like a huge smart person.
I don't know.
And I mean, like, the fact that they were saying the precision it took, like, that he was good with instruments and like that, I don't know. I just kind of feel like it could be like a situation where he was so smart and he just never even was on their radar.
Yeah.
So that ends our theories, basically, which keeps us at like the what do you think section of my little paper, where I say, so do you think that the 68 murders were connected, or do you think that the gun fell into the monster's hands after the fact?
I think it was after. I don't think it was connected.
And then I said, do you think that it was somebody involving the Sardinian connection?
Yes.
Like whether it was Francesco Vinci, Antonio Vinci, Salvatore Vinci, Giovanni Melli.
The son. It was the son.
Yeah, or the son.
Who likes his pussy hole.
Literally. Like, or do you think it was Pietro Palacini, whether alone or with Mario Vanni or Giancarlo Lottie? Do you think it was a cult?
No.
That hired them to get the sex organs?
That's stupid. I don't like that one.
Do you think that there was any connection between the Zodiac killings and the Monster of Florence?
I think that's a stretch. personally.
And then that's it. That's all. Those are all of the theories.
I've got mine. I think it's either the son of the Sardinian guy who was involved originally, or they haven't even figured it out at all.
I know. I feel like it's hard to know.
I don't know.
But I kind of think it was the son, or it was somebody who was never suspected.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts.
Because, like, the whole time you were talking in the beginning, I was like, I don't feel like it's any of these guys. I don't even know who I would guess. But then you said the thing about the son, and I was like, ooh, that could hold up.
It could hold up.
But then I'm like, I don't know.
I know. I don't really know either.
I wonder if we'll ever know.
I don't know. I mean...
What if they come out with it tomorrow?
Well, the thing is, when I was researching, there was, like, recent articles, like...
Yeah.
That one guy who was friends with that shitball of a person.
Yeah.
That they still want... Like, they want to open an investigation on him right now. Like, there's still stuff about that.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
This was an interesting one.
I know. I thought it was very intriguing.
Very mysterious.
I thought it was very mysterious as well.
And curious, if you will.
I know. Okay. We don't need to do all that. Well, that's what I have on that.
It's awesome.
So, I think it's very mysterious and curious, as you said. And I think it was probably that son or a mystery person. But a mystery person doesn't fully explain how they got the gun. So,
right.
Kind of leaning towards the son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, the end.
Nice. Okay, so that was our two-parter, our first two-parter.
It was our first two-parter. Who would have thought it would have been me, not me. Though, to be fair, you have been sitting on one. We just haven't.
Yeah, that one will probably be a three-parter.
Well, hopefully it'll just be two, but we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I'll see. How many pages was yours?
15.
Well, okay. Mine's 20.
Okay, well, to be fair, that probably would be better as a 3, but it would depend, really.
We'll see.
We'll have to see whenever that happens.
Keep an eye out on all of our social medias.
Yes.
We're going to be doing something super cool soon.
Yes, next week we will be doing something very fun.
Keep an eye out on Sunday.
Yeah, keep your eyeballs open on Instagram.
Yep.
That's the hint.
Yep.
And again, follow us on all of our social medias if you have not been, and rate and review us, and keep hanging out with us and suggesting topics and being fun, because we're having a good time.
Give us feedback too.
Yeah, and that's all.
That's it.
That's all. I gotta go finish my potato salad.
Yeah, so that's it. Thank you for listening, and we are
Mysteriosities.
Woo!
Yay, two-parter.
Yes.
Yay, we did it.